and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube. We come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening, 6:30 Central Time. Happy to be here today to talk about a very eclectic movie, kind of an acquired taste, sort of an unexpected success. And I'm not talking about Minecraft. We're going to table that for next week. I am talking The Luckiest Man in America. Opened in about 600 theaters this weekend. There's a good chance you did not see it. I'll say that much, but there's a really strong chance that I think we're going to be in agreement that you should see it. And I've got a little bit of a personal connection to this story, so I ham-fisted it, wedged it into the schedule. We did not have a Minecraft movie originally listed to talk about on this show, but somebody, yours truly, me, who underestimated it along with all the box office analysts, recognized the ill of their ways. We're going to talk about that movie next week in a show that I'm also very excited for, that I think is going to be a very fun show and a very, I guess a very nostalgic show in a way too. I don't know. I'm looking forward to next week's show. I'm looking forward to tonight's show first and foremost, but also looking forward that we have time to discuss a Minecraft movie. And if you're wondering why I'm already looking ahead to, I credit Joe Viso for that because he added a slew of movies to our summer catalog today. Shout out to you for working that Google Drive magic today. We've got a lot of great reviews coming this summer. I'm very excited about so many of these movies. And then there's some movies too that we'll talk about those. I know what you did last summer, So, we'll talk about those. Those will exist in a matter of time. But either way, it's good to have the gang back together. First things first, Joe in the tracksuit representing our alma mater. How are you today?
I'm doing really good. Very big difference in just health and just overall feeling and physical well-being than I think last time we did this show, I didn't participate in the review. I went to go lie down, which actually was good because I wasn't feeling that well. And then
You're
the week
upright.
before, yeah, I'm actually upright. And then the week before that, I was laying down in bed talking about, I don't even know what movie we reviewed at that time. That's how long it's been.
Anora, I think.
Anora, it was Anora. Yep, I remember watching it now, while I was recovering and everything. Yeah, I feel really good. It feels really good to be walking and everything. Still a little bit of mobility, limitation. Still having trouble bending down fully, but I can squat if I have to pick something up. So don't really need people's help with that. Still can't lift anything heavy up just yet. Almost there. But I'm very happy that recovery has been going very well since my surgery and everything. And I'm very happy that I finally got to get out of the house and go to the movies and do a bunch of other stuff too.
Very happy you're doing well, man, because I know that was a bitch of a surgery that you had to go through. So I'm really happy that you are doing well, upright, back in the movie theater, the auditorium, as it's known on Sleepless with Steve. D, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. It's cold and rainy, but as predicted, we're gonna get one more cold snap before the summer and probably
Don't you
more to
love how
come.
March was like an early preview to summer, and then ever since the calendar flipped to April 1st, it's been fucking miserable?
Yeah. Yep. April showers bring May whatever the hell Chicago wants. But regardless, for personally, I've been busy in Chicago. In fact, going to there was the last Saturday was the big April 5th hands off protests. I don't know if you saw any footage
Yep.
of that. I was at the one in Daily Center Plaza, and that was a very big one. About 30,000 people there is what the
Oh,
Sun
wow.
Times reported.
Nice.
And it was the man. You can say one thing about it sucks having fascist America, but man, the protest sign game is off the charts, bro.
Yes.
People, cutting out silhouettes of cyber trucks, and then they decorate them in flames and stuff, and like they say they ironically put "Stop the Steal" on them, and it's like Jesus Christ. And that's just a small sample. And I've been going to a number of demonstrations in the past several weeks, and
Good on you.
yeah, and honestly, so I don't know if I told you guys, I went to the 2024 DNC in Chicago
You did,
last year, about a half year ago. and I printed out, not printed out, but rather ordered these press badges about yay big, and they cost a pretty penny. So it's like, well, I can't just use them for the one thing. So I got to start using them more now, and I feel a little silly every time I put them on. But I put them on, and then I use the camera, and you can see a lot of the stuff that I shot and did on my Instagram at Blue Collar Jazz, not my personal one, but rather um, my I guess my jazz and protest one. It's an eclectic Instagram. Joe, in fact I haven't reminded you of what
The
does my
handle?
Instagram say on the stream?
BCJ Chicago.
Okay. It has technically changed because I reclaimed blue collar jazz. But that's okay. Not important. But yes, just been busy and things are ramping up. As the economy goes down, things ramp up. And that is bad for everyone, but at least honestly, I think I just have an addiction to having a front row seat to the madness, and that's part of the reason I like repping the cause, but that is part of the reason why I do it. I'll be honest. That's my selfish reason.
There's a great Bukowski quote that he says. I'll kind of paraphrase the first half of it, but he said, "Life is a continuous struggle, but it always seems worth 3 or 4 more days. Think we'll make it?" And it's one
It's
of
pretty
my
good.
favorite Bukowski quotes I've been thinking about a lot lately, for sure, for a multitude of reasons, which is why, too. I mean, what's funny is Joe's over here recovering, feeling great, feeling probably the best he's felt in a month. You're over here on the front lines, over here on the activist circuit, and I'm over here like, I've been on a weird motorcycle movie kick over the last couple of days. I watched Biker Boys with a Z with Lawrence Fishburne. And I watched a movie that Joe gave 1 star. Highly recommend you go back and rewatch this movie, Torque, with Ice Cube and Michael Henderson, if you remember that movie, Joe. The movie Torque. Rewatch that one. Rewatch Supercross today, and that put an end to the motorcycle movies. I'm good now. But yeah, you guys are doing important things over here, doing least significant things, and I'm over here like, I'm gonna watch Biker Boys with a Z. I found a DVD at Goodwill, you know.
I don't remember that movie, by the way, Torque.
You don't remember it? Martin
No.
Henderson, Ice Cube, motorcycle movie, real piss take on Fast and the Furious.
No. I'm gonna have to look it up.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. 2004, directed by Joseph Kahn. We're not here to talk about that movie, but I felt like because I gave it a 2.5 out of 4 star review on my website, and then I'm like, damn, gave it 1 star. I see why, but damn, like, At any rate, though, I hope nobody's giving this movie 1 star though. I think there's a lot more substance in this movie. The movie we're reviewing today, The Luckiest Man in America, directed by Samir Oliveros. This is a movie about Press Your Luck, specifically the 1984 Press Your Luck scandal. First question, roundtable question. Have you two ever watched Press Your Luck, or the early 2000s kind of revival of it known as Whammy?
I did. I've watched Whammy. That I have watched. So, but my mom always told me that back then it was called Press Your Luck. So I never actually saw the original broadcast of this stuff. I did see Whammy, and I did see an episode of, I don't know if it's still called Whammy now, but Elizabeth Banks is the host of it. And they basically have essentially the same show.
Yeah, they did revitalize or revive it again. I'm trying to figure out what the name of it is because it was like a very little interest to me. It is called Press Your Luck from 2019. It's got the
Okay.
similar board and everything. I remember it was a game show network thing, Whammy. It was like 2002. And it was basically Press Your Luck, but it was a little bit more digitized. It was a little bit more Whammy centric because that was obviously the draw of the show.
Yeah, their mascot of the show.
Right. If you don't know though, Press Your Luck was a game show in the 80s, and it ran for a pretty significant amount of time. It ran for 3 years, which, like I said, I say significant, but 3 years, and you got to think of this not as a show, as a series, as an episodic series, but a game show. It ran for over 800 episodes. So it was a very significant game show of the time. It was created by the pair of Bill Carruthers, who's in this movie, portrayed by David Strathairn, and Jan McCormick. And it was a show that was on CBS and both ABC. I'm not gonna lie. This was some of my earliest childhood memories in front of the TV are with this show. Quite honestly, watching it with my dad. So this show has always had a special connection with me. I've always loved it. I've always liked Peter Tamarkin, who's the original host of the show. Um, and I just learned last week doing a little bit of, did a little bit of recon, mainly on the Press Your Luck front, to kind of refamiliarize myself with it. I didn't realize Tamarkin, I knew he was dead, but Tamarkin died in a plane crash in '06,
Oh
which I
shit.
did not know. He was a pilot, him and his wife. But either way, jumping around a little bit, what do you expect? But Press Your Luck, Supermarket Sweep, two of the shows that were kind of indispensable to my childhood. Remember watching those with my dad, and I've mentioned on the show in the past that my dad hates movies. You know, there's I like movies, the movie we reviewed about a month ago, and then there's my dad. I hate movies. Watches maybe three movies a year, and then bitches to me. Like, I don't know if I mentioned about a year ago or so, there was Joyride, which he hated the first time he saw it, and then he fairly recently called me and he was like, I watched that stupid ass Joyride movie. After about the fourth time watching, yeah, it's all right. It's not bad. You know, there was that, and there was Last Night in Soho for a while. He hated that movie, and now he's like, yeah, it's okay. Last Night in Soho of all things.
Hey man,
But
if you watch a movie 4 times, I don't think you hate
that's
it.
what I've always said. I remember I would come home and my dad would be watching like Drake and Josh. Like I'd come home from
Yeah.
like high school and my dad would be watching Drake and Josh, and I'm like, why the hell are you watching Drake and Josh? And he's like, just to see how ignorant it is.
No, you like that shit.
Yeah, that's how I'm like, you like that
This
shit.
is the same thing when all my friends used to be like, I don't watch Zoe 101, but I did watch last night's episode. I'm like, hey, you like the girls on it, all right? Like, stop bitching, and you think the show's
No
fun.
kidding.
All right.
Stop playing. I think my dad doesn't hate movies. He's just afraid to like shit. But
That's so true. So many people.
Press Your Luck, though, again, indispensable part of my childhood. This movie, I didn't think we'd ever get a movie like this, quite frankly. We got a documentary a few years ago under the same name. But this is about the 1984 Press Your Luck scandal involving the contestant. His name is Michael Larson. Michael Larson was a contestant on this show, and essentially he cracked the code to Press Your Luck. Now, this is one of those movies, and we're going to ruin it. We're going to ruin it, so if you keep watching it, like, not spoil it, but I'm going to say this. And it's kind of ironic because I don't think this is the kind of movie people are going to stumble into or just kind of elect to watch. But this movie kind of behooves the ignorant, and you guys didn't have the connection to Press Your Luck. You guys didn't really know the story beforehand,
No,
correct?
I didn't even watch the trailer for this. You literally just texted, this is what we're reviewing, and I knew it had Paul Walterhausen in it, and I went, all right, yeah, I'll go see it. I like him as an actor and everything. So everybody else who showed up in this movie and what this movie was about was a big surprise to me.
Yeah, so like and I think Joe can touch on this a little bit too. Obviously, for that reason, is that if you don't know the story going into it, it really behooves you.
Yeah.
And I think it leads itself to a really compelling mystery. Now, if you know the story of the Press Your Luck scandal involving Michael Larson, I still think it's a very compelling movie, and I still think it's a really good dramatization. And I use that word. I'm going to use that word a couple times tonight because of the fact that, like, you got to remember, this was a taping of a 42-minute show. There are a handful of moments in this movie that did not happen, that are clearly dramatized, like the whole bit with Johnny Knoxville as the talk show host.
Yeah.
I figured
Never
that, yeah.
happened. I think you can even put two and two together and assume that never happened. There's the phone call sequence, which never happened.
Yeah, I was gonna say though, Johnny Knoxville, amazing performances for the short time he's on screen. I was like, oh, yeah, he actually played a late night show host pretty well.
For a fleeting moment, I thought we should have one of the things we should do on this show is have like an end of the year awards. And I'm not talking like best actor, favorite performance. I'm talking about
like obscure shit.
Obscure shit. Like I would say like Johnny Knoxville so far is the front runner for time spent at the club versus impact at the club award. The Jesse Plemons award from last year with Civil War.
Yeah.
Just a terrific performance by him. I'm jumping around here. The luckiest man in America, though, Paul Walterhausen plays Michael Larson, who sort of weasels his way on this show, Press Your Luck, becomes a contestant, one of the three contestants, and takes over the game very quickly by virtue of memorization. That's a good place to start. Joe, what say you?
Yeah, no, like I said, going into this movie, not knowing anything about it, other than like I knew it was about Press Your Luck just from the poster. I was like, okay, it's about that. I didn't know about the whole, if you want to call it a scandal or if you want to call it whatever you want to, tied to Michael Larson and this whole thing. So I thought the way it actually starts and once it's fully revealed, I thought that portion of the film is done very well, especially for people who just don't know what they're walking into and whatnot. Um, which this will be a fun movie. This is definitely something I want to like own one day and just throw it on for people. I'm like, hey, have you seen this? Like, if I know this might be like up their alley or something, like, have you ever seen this movie? Like, and just kind of watch their reaction to it and be like, okay, like, who is this guy? Like, why is he acting like this and everything? And then like just watch them slowly like reveal the truth. Um, this is one of those movies that I look at though, and I'm just gonna say this: you're coming here for the performances. The performances are why you're here for the movie. Everything else is kind of second to that. The set design, they recreate it very well. Costumes, they pull off the 80s era really well. They do that really well too. They don't shove it in your face like we've mentioned before when it comes to like doing 80s movies and everything. Direction wise, it's directed and it has some pretty creative moments, especially the stuff that's dramatized. I thought was very creative. But I will say, story wise, once everything is revealed, I will say past that point, the film just kind of just was taking its sweet time to wrap everything up. Which is probably the only big criticism I have about the movie is that once it's revealed, it feels like the movie doesn't know where it wants to go really at that point. Like, do we want to spend more time with the CBS crew and how they're going to counter what Michael's doing? Or are we going to focus more on Michael's psychology and, like, who he is as a human being and why he's on this game show? And it's like, they kind of wiggle between both. And they give Michael a lot of screen time. And I feel like you get to know who Michael is by the end of the movie. You really get to, especially the ending. The ending, which doesn't feature Michael at all, I think actually makes like a bigger statement about who that character is and what he was achieving and everything compared to actually having him on screen. I was like, okay, that was actually like a really cool ending. I really like how you guys did that. The CBS crew, though, even though I think everybody in the control room, the green room, whatever you want to call it, I think everybody in there, Walter Goggins and tons of other people, they're acting their ass off. It just sucks to say that I don't feel like any of them really get any sort of, not development, but like really have that much of an impact on the story overall. There is like kind of like a B storyline going on here between I need to get actually the cast list up. I forgot to do that. It's going between
Shamir Anderson, Chuck.
Yep.
The casting director, and
Yep.
then you have David Strathairn, who plays Bill Carruthers.
There is sort of a B storyline going on between them and like kind of their relationship as the producer and like casting director. And then you have like a studio executive show up as well, and you have other people like pertaining to this as well, producers, crew members. But like they're the main two that we really focus on from the start to the finish of the film. I will say it's those two characters that I feel like the movie kind of loses its focus on. And it really sucks because I actually really thought the relationship that they had here as two characters interacting with one another was really interesting. And I wanted to see more of it. I know I've been kind of harping more on my negatives here, but I do have a lot more positives to say. But I want to pass it off to Dom before I go any further.
Yeah, like Joe, I had not known much about this story or this movie, and I didn't seek anything out when Steve threw in that curveball in the chat. And I'm very, but I'm
You were
very
just happy.
to
You're like, oh, we don't have to see Minecraft. All right, so
and I personally, I think there's a lot of things, not a lot, but there are several things that keep this from being a 4-star movie for me. That is how I'm approaching this because I liked it. This is right up my alley. Man, this is like niche American history with a really good, authentic aesthetic to the time. Great performances, like Joe said. You are watching this for the damn good performances in here, and like, dude, like David Strathairn is like my go-to. Whenever I see his name, I'm like, I'm in. I'm absolutely in. Whether he's the Secretary of State to Abraham Lincoln or, you know, busting Joe McCarthy's balls on Good Night and Good Luck. I am a David Strathairn stan. I am a
He has
David
some of the
Stanhern.
best reactions throughout this whole movie. Like anytime, like
And he's
he's
got a
look,
great voice.
he does, yeah.
He has a remarkable voice. If he wasn't an actor, he'd be a great voice actor. I keep quoting the line of his that he says early on to Michael. He says, "You're gonna trim that beard and comb that mop on your head." He adds a gravity to this thing.
He
If you
feels like
ever
a
have time,
80s TV show producer. Like it works perfectly.
hmm if you ever have time, look up David Strathairn on YouTube reciting John Brown's famous letter, either letter or like last will and testimony or what have you. But it's a very famous American letter about John Brown before by John Brown before he got executed, and he just delivers the hell out of that monologue. I think he was originally going to play Lincoln until Spielberg cast, you know, the big guy.
Daniel Day
Daniel Day
Lewis.
Lewis,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. But regardless, this movie takes a while to get going and not in a good way. I was really hoping that we would get like it would all pay off, but it doesn't quite launch in the same way that I think I wanted it to. I don't know exactly what I wanted, but it didn't launch in the way that connected with me. It's it's seemingly straightforward, but then it does throw in nice curveballs. I will say, the biggest thing that I like about this movie is that it hunkers down on Michael Larson, the man, and his relationship to his family or
Yeah.
lack thereof, or the mystery of it too. As someone who loves, you know, overly going into the detail of everything at any point in time, I am glad that the movie kept that mystery to it. Because if you don't know the story, you're like, does this family exist? Is there a restraining order? Is he like a serial killer? We have no idea what the hell's going on here. But that mystery and that tension throughout the whole thing, and his shiftiness is really really interesting. And if you guys seen the actual episode on
Yes.
YouTube,
No, I
yeah,
want to now though. It's been
I've seen
something I've been
clips.
wanting to do.
I like jumped around the video because I didn't have a lot of time, but I mean, Paul Walter Hauser, he absolutely steals this movie, and everything he does in this movie is true, is seemingly true to life because the way he presses the button, the way he yells stop, it's exactly that, and it's pretty good acting. But I am glad that even though there's a lot more to chew on in the Michael Larson. If you read Michael Larson's Wikipedia, it's actually really juicy as hell.
Dude,
And after
immediately,
the yeah,
I was gonna
after
say,
there's so much more, but I'm glad it stayed focused. Go ahead.
immediately when this movie ended, that's the first thing I did.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's something about it. It seemed like it was trying to balance all of these plot lines and character interactions, but it somehow fell flat for me. I don't know how to describe what I'm. Do you guys get the same vibe as me? Or
It see now here's the thing. This doesn't usually happen. I saw this twice.
okay.
I saw this twice.
I only saw it once. Yeah.
I saw it Thursday, opening night, and Catherine wasn't feeling well, so she didn't come with me. Well, then she said she still wanted to see it because of how I was talking it up, even beforehand and stuff. So she's like, "Do you want to go Sunday?" And I'm like, "I'll go see it again." I'm like, "Absolutely, I'll go see it again." Funny, my couple of my friends at the theater that worked there were pissed off because they're like, "Yeah, it's because of this fucking movie. We didn't get hell of a summer." And I'm like, you know what? Like, either or, I would have went luckiest man, but either way, um, but I saw it twice, and I do know what you mean about how this does take a little bit longer to get going. And it was kind of a blessing to see this twice because, the first time I'm elated already to go
Right. Right.
see a
Right.
Press Your Luck movie. So I already kind of have a fog of, enchantment going into this thing. It does take a minute to get going. And it's one of those movies, too, that like it lets its performances and it lets its characters sort of
Mhm.
guide the story in a way. So no, I definitely understand what you mean. There's
And
a
I'm all for slow burns. I'm all for payoffs,
and it's
but
hard to and it's like
somehow,
hard too because it is not it's less than 90 minutes.
right?
Like
That's
it's like
crazy. Yeah.
85 minutes.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say it's not a criticism I have towards the movie, but it's like this movie tries doing so much in so little time, and it's like, hey man, look, you gotta recognize like if you don't have that much time, you gotta choose your battles wisely.
It's like the film didn't have an umph underneath it, if you catch my drift, which is a choice. If that's what the director was going for, good for him. It's a little more, it's a little slower. It's a little more methodical in that sense. It's not, my go-to is always Scott Pilgrim, but you know what I mean? It's not flash. It's not like Oceans, right? It's not like Oceans 11 where everything's flashy, everything is bright lights and 80s like you think a movie like that would be. It's
Yeah.
got some bright
Like
lights, don't get me wrong.
quiz
Yeah.
shows the common point of comparison with this thing.
Uh-huh.
Which is the dramatization that led to like a lot of game show lawsuits and things like that. Um, so I will say though, a lion's weight of this movie rests on Paul Walter Hauser's shoulders, and he's exceptional. And I've long said that he is one of the actors working today whose name we need to know,
Yeah.
because this is a guy who has played ever. I have been struck by him as a performer since I, Tanya. And since he played a supporting role in I, Tanya, he did that great, I think one of the sneaky great Clint Eastwood movies of the last few years, Richard Jewell. That was, I believe, his first lead performance too. He was in a few other things like Queen Pins and an assortment of other things, but there's few people that really bring a seriousness to like these slightly unhinged oddball characters that also have this endearing quality to him. And I mean, there's even some situations like Dom, you'll know this too, just having watched some of the original Michael Larson episode. Like Paul Walter Hausen somehow looks weirder than Michael Larson with that beard. And I think it's the full beard. I think it's the full beard on him. But
Dude looks like Karl Marx like on a game show. Like, what the hell?
and I think it's also the suit with shorts. The suit jacket with shorts.
And the movie makes a clear point to like, hey, this is weird, right? Like,
I read something about at the premiere Johnny Knoxville was at, and the one guy who sat in front of Knoxville at the premiere said Knoxville made an audible comment about how sexy Paul Walter Hauser's calves are, which I think is hilarious in itself. But so much of this movie rests on Hauser though, and he nails a lot of the mannerisms. Where again, even if you're like Joe and you have no knowledge of this scandal or this happenstance on TV, like there's something about him from the very moment you meet him, and then when he starts playing the game, like he nails it. And then when they focus on his eyes that are following the board, and then just the way he'll yell stop and stuff like that, like he brings a lot of those dynamic details to life with this character, I think.
No, he does. To me, the selling point in the movie, like I did say, was the acting, and I think the cast overall like contributes to that. He's definitely, I mean, and for good reason why he's the heavy lifter of it. He's the leading man here. But he is why, like, you're gonna remember this movie probably more than anything, because I think every little detail he puts into this performance, even to the opening scene where it's just like he's doing the interview on why he should be on the show, and even then you're kind of like, hold on, man, something's off about this guy. Like, he's being so sincere and everything. I'm like, there's something off about him though. Yeah, man. I mean, like, I have to agree with you. I mean, like, Paul Walter Hauser, like, he's a guy I've been loving in everything that I've seen from Cobra Kai, the Black Klansman, which is a wide range of stuff.
Yes.
I can't wait to see him in all the movies he's going to be in later this year. Like, he's in 3 more projects, I think, for this year. And I can't wait to see him in all of them. He's an actor I look forward to, and to me, I feel like this is finally the movie that I feel like he needed. It's kind of like how Limitless was for Bradley Cooper, where it was like, hey guys, look at me, I have acting chops. It's like, all right, look, apparently Richard Jewell wasn't good enough to like, land you even more leading man roles, so we have to give you this one even more. And I really hope it does sell him even more. The guy, to me, he could be comedic, he could be dramatic, and he can voice act as well. He, like, it's just the guy is so good in everything that I've seen him in.
Yeah, and I think he is really a great anchor for this sort of, I guess for lack of a better term, like misfit group of cast members too, because you got a lot of young people in this movie. You got a lot of veterans and stuff. Obviously, David Strathairn, Walton Goggins. I think is somebody who watched the show growing up and watched some episodes back before this movie. Walton Goggins does a great Peter Tamarkin. He really does. He does. He nails like Tamarkin's easygoing charisma. Tamarkin, going back to it and watching some earlier episodes of Press Your Luck, he wasn't like nowadays. There's a lot of game shows like Jamie Foxx on Beat Shazam, famous ones probably Steve Harvey on Family Feud, that try to kind of hog the spotlight in so
Yeah.
many ways,
Mhm.
like and mug for the camera. I think the last game show host that, for lack of a better term, kind of like knew his role was Alex Trebek.
Yeah.
The late Alex Trebek on Jeopardy. I think he really kind of knew his role. Sajak, even when Sajak would insert himself, he would always have a joke. But Tamarkin never really cracked a whole lot of jokes. He was mainly smiley, charismatic, and I think Goggins nails that.
He does. I was gonna say his character performance, especially, is more serving Michael's like overall story too, and it's like and that's how it should be with a character like that as well.
The one bit I loved, I think Goggins had it best was the scene when he first gets called up, when Tamarkin first gets called up to the control room, and Carruthers tells him, he's like, you have to scare him with the odds of the whammy to get him to pass or to get him to stop spinning. And now that he's already hit the record of the show, and then Tamarkin after the commercial break comes back and says, the forecast is calling for whammy, you know, and talking about the odds and stuff like that. And then when Michael Larson elects to spin, Goggins looks right into the camera and says, "Well, I tried."
Tried.
And that definitely was, it's just somebody who has this like connection to the show, was Tamarkin's sense of humor, very much so. And I like that Goggins channeled that.
This is a tangent, but man, we gotta give it. We don't give enough shout outs to the people behind the music on this show. And so I got to give a shout out to, apparently, according to Wikipedia, John Carroll Kirby for this pretty good soundtrack.
Love
It
the end credit
honestly,
song too.
yeah, 100%. Great choice. And this, along with the set design and costuming, just the overall aesthetics, but the music especially. Oh, less than a minute. It harkens back to when the 80s wasn't the 80s as we know it, but rather the holdover from the 70s, where everything was a little dustier, everything was a little more wood. And in any case, yes.
Very nicely said, though. We will come back here in just about 60 to 90 seconds to talk more about the luckiest man in America after our Zoom-sponsored intermission. Don't go anywhere. It's Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube. And I love football, though. I find it incredibly fascinating. I find it simultaneously simple but complex. The business of football, though, is a very different beast. And it's something that when you start diving into, it really shows you what runs this country, what runs the academic programs of this country, whether it be the University of Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, LSU, the big collegiate powerhouses that we have in this country. Football not only runs these schools, but supplements every other sports program at major D1 Division I college athletics. Football is the bankroll. It's the reason you have a women's basketball team. It's the reason these colleges have lacrosse teams and tennis teams and badminton teams. It's the reason for it, because football is a fucking cash cow in this country. And there probably hasn't been, and if there is, I don't want to make this a blanket statement because I haven't seen it. I've admittedly lacked on documentaries in recent time, but there might not be a better, there admittedly might not be a better documentary to show that fact than BS High, which is currently streaming on Max, directed by Martin Desmond Rowe and Trevon Free. I want to give these two dudes names. I want to give them name drops, and I want to name drop them a couple times because, man, these are some good directors. These are some good directors. I find documentaries to be, and I've been reviewing documentaries since I started reviewing movies back in 2009. I find documentaries the hardest types of movies to review because of the fact that it's like, am I interested? Do I love the story or do I love the movie? Or do I love the idea and the themes that the story brings on? Or do I love the approach? And it's something that I wrestle with constantly when I watch documentaries because I feel like it's tough. As somebody like me who has a lot of different vested interests, I can go from talking to you about ringtone rap of 2007 to Ren and Stimpy and its problematic creator in 2000 in the 1990s to country music of the 1950s, all of which topics on documentaries I've watched. I find documentaries the toughest to review because of the fact that I wrestle with the fact, am I interested in the story and the subject, or do I love the way it was approached? And I love both when it comes to BS High. I think this is a terrific documentary about a slimy piece of shit person. And also, too, a really deceptively intricate scam at the same time that it wasn't a deceptively intricate scam. The movie focuses on the Bishop Sycamore High School scandal. Now, I remember when this game aired on ESPN. I want to give a little background here. I remember when this game aired on ESPN. I didn't watch it, but I remember seeing it on TV. It was Bishop Sycamore High School versus IMG Academy. I remember seeing that game air on TV. It was 2021. It was in late summer. I want to say August. August of 2021. I remember seeing it, and I remember seeing Bishop Sycamore trending on Twitter, and I'm like, what is this? And I remember like scrolling through, and I'm like, there's some high school playing on ESPN. And at the time, you got to think of the context. This was about a year and a half after COVID, or year and a half during COVID, if you want to think of it that way. And I remember looking at it and thinking like, God, ESPN must be pressed for programming. They're airing a high school, matchup on their premier network. But the film follows Bishop Sycamore High School, a fake high school in Ohio, and largely centers around Roy Johnson, the head coach of Bishop Sycamore High School. Bishop Sycamore Centurions, as they're known. And it basically talks about how this fictitious high school and this completely falsified athletic program, specifically the football, obviously, the football program was allowed to pass as a football program in the state of Ohio. And it is royally fascinating. It has this very intricate sort of device that it uses where it incorporates Rowan Free, the directors of the movie, into interviewing Roy Johnson, because as far as the talking heads are concerned, he probably takes up most of the movie. And it lets him try and tell the story of how and why this fictitious high school came to be, why he was recruiting these left out players, or these left out post high school kids that were in their late teens, early 20s to play the game of football, and how he basically used these kids as a way of financial gain in completely poor fashion, I might add. There is so much to unpack. I have to give credit to Joe, too, because Joe is the one who put this movie on my radar. I would probably not have seen this movie despite... Back and better than ever after a Michael Larson break. This is Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. We come to you live every Wednesday evening, live and in living color. Tried to handle that like Tamarkin, but failed as much. We are talking about The Luckiest Man in America, the movie that depicts the 1984 Press Your Luck scandal. I kind of ended or concluded just by talking about some of the performances that really struck me throughout this thing, because that's really what this movie is built upon. Dom, what say you? You were kind of right before the break. I don't want to rush your thought here. You were talking about really the production design by Lulu Salgado, which I wholeheartedly agree with. I think this movie is drop dead gorgeous when it comes to the production element.
Yeah, no, the home run in Darien is the one that I go to. Also, the aesthetics for Green Room Shenanigans. No, the aesthetic here is fantastic. Honestly, the acting is the number one thing that you're going to get out of this movie. The second thing for me is the aesthetic.
Yeah.
Like there are really clean ass shots of just that 1980s yellow. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Most of it is Shamir Anderson's absolutely killer sweater on his killer body. Like, damn.
Dude, he's built.
He
Like when he was
is,
walking
dude.
around, I'm like, you're not a casting director with that body, bro. You're
I,
on a show.
I, I am sitting there going like, take off the sweater. But no, it's like, no, there are very clean shots here, and the sheen. This is a camera filter thing of which I know very little about. But there is, that sheen, that look, that slight noise and fuzz on the film looks really, really nice. And I just got it's hard to just talk about this without, showing people, but the look here is really, really good. And as I was saying hastily, it harkens to what the 80s really was, which is that, we think of 80s as vaporwave, everything's neon purple and pink and arcades, which it was to a degree. But I think for most people, the real 80s was that whole, every decade comes a decade late, where or it comes 5 years late, where it's still 70s. It's still got a lot of that
Yeah.
that wood paneling, that kind of gross ass looking carpet and stuff like that.
It's
But
1984, but it feels like a bleeding of the decades.
yes, 100. You're still in that era, 100%. Yeah, yeah.
It's one of those things too. It's such a shame too that like it's not getting as wide of a release as possible, because I could totally see my parents and like people of their age really just loving this movie just for the look of it, because it really does capture that kind of thing. Because like I've shown my parents like Stranger Things and everything, and they think like, oh, it's it's a fun show and everything, but like, oh, it's such an exaggerated look of the 80s and whatnot. But like something like this, I know would make them go, oh, like this got it. Like, and the fact that it's also about a game show like that they grew up with would also make them like sit around and like watch the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
I completely agree. I think this movie is really a beautiful looking movie from a production design. In the nicest way possible, this movie looks like it has a smell to it. In the nicest way possible. I will also add too, and I picked up more on this on the second viewing too. The last act of this movie, by this point, the producers have figured out what Larson's doing. And now it's like the blurred lines between like, is he cheating or did he just outsmart CBS? And now we know the answer to that. But in the moment, it's a little bit more opaque. And the last act of this movie kind of has, and it really even included the Johnny Knoxville, the Leon Hart talk show scene, starts to play a little bit more two-handedly like a horror movie. And it kind of has, I don't know if it's just the recency. I don't know if recency, it's been about a year, but it kind of had very vague, obviously just because it's on the set of a show, like Late Night with the Devil sort of vibes in a way. You know what I mean? Like it has like this undercurrent of horror and mystery to it too, especially as like stuff like the producers and stuff, like particularly Chuck Shamir Anderson's character, they start to find out more about Michael Larson. It had kind of this undercurrent of a horror movie where Larson even starts to feel like a prisoner within the game and things like that. So I really
Dude, that
appreciate
poster.
that.
Joe, I don't know if you have the poster on
I
the
get it,
screen
yeah.
or not. But did that poster
Is it the
of
one
just
where he's
Paul
like this?
Hauser, yeah, looking absolute menacing, like bro.
No, it's a creepy poster even
Yeah.
too. Like it's a creepy looking poster. I know they probably like they had to have a hell of a time trying to communicate this thing with a one sheet. You know what I mean? But what they settled on was really good, I thought. Gives you that idea too. And then like everything just starts to look a little bit more menacing too. Like you have the stage lights, you have the flickering flashing lights of the board game itself, you have the oscillating stage. All these hallmarks that were like initially inviting in the first time you saw them, they start to just become turned on their side as the game goes on and the money keeps racking up.
Dude,
They
shout
do.
out to whoever. Sorry, just real quick.
Go
The
ahead.
set design of the literal like game board
Yeah.
and how much they focus in on it, it is mesmerizing, dude.
They
There's so much
Right down to the
character in that
slides
board.
of like 4,000 plus a spin. Looked
Yeah.
identical to how they did on the show.
Not
they
only authentic, but just mesmerizing. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
No, you're good. You're good. They did such a good job too because they tee up like that uncomfortableness and like kind of a little bit of a horror vibe. They tee it up early on in the movie too. When Michael first sits down in his chair and everything, there is a bit of uneasiness as like he turns around and he's looking at the audience and the cameras are on him and everything. And he's got to push the button and like the screen and the whammies show up, like the mascot itself, like like a guy in a suit. Like they do a good job at like kind of making you feel uncomfortable at first, but then you get sucked into the game. But then when it becomes like, a game of cat and mouse, basically, that's when it becomes uneasy again.
Reminded me a little bit of the Banana Splits movie. I know I've brought it up before. I don't know if you two have seen it, but it's the horror movie rendition, sort of remake
of the show,
Hanna-Barbera show, where it's like the warehouse. Then, because like all these things, the idea is before it was chic with like Winnie the Pooh and like Screamboat and things like that. The idea of like a kid show having this like ominous side to it. That's kind of what it reminded me of in so many ways too. And I'm not gonna lie, like I've never been on a game show like in the audience. The closest thing I had to that experience, if you remember the show Windy City Live,
I knew you were gonna say that.
You
Yeah,
knew
I remember you sending us that. Yeah.
Yeah, when my dad and I were on, which is still one of those things. Like I don't know how the fuck that happened.
I was also on Windy City Live, which I'm still trying to find clips of that one episode to prove it, but I can never find them.
I DVR'd it. I DVR'd it the day we were on. We were in the top corner, and we were like the only two males, and we both wore light blue polos, so we were easy to recognize.
I remember this photo because I showed you mine of like me and my mom having to sit on like 2 extra folding chairs because the crowd was that big.
The crowd was big, yeah, that's really funny.
And then you showed me yours, and in the corner you just see your dad like arms crossed. Like, how the fuck did I end up here?
that picture of you just like just in the background.
That was a wild time, but like having been on like that's a one-time thing, but having been on that kind of a set though, it's different. Because you see for the framing of the 3 camera shots and everything, the stage and everything, but everything else is like warehouse like. Everything else is just kind of structured for the audience or structured for the producers and everything. And I think they do a great job at that, especially as they focus on the control room and such. I think they do a great job on that. And you know what? Seeing it twice too, I just want to throw this out there too. It kind of confirmed. I'm like, this is going to be, I don't know how often it's going to be on TV or anything. I want to own the Blu-ray though when it comes out, but this is going to wind up being one of my comfort movies. And as weird as it is to say, it's just the warmth of the film grain and the aesthetic and obviously the callback to a nostalgic show that I grew up with. But even that aside, though, and I go back to, I kind of circumvent back to my original point. I think if you do not know the whole story or don't know anything about it, I think those are the people who are going to wind up really enjoying this the most.
Yeah.
I think so too.
If you want to go, Joe, Dom, and then I'll conclude with final thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. What a gem. I had the whole theater to myself, too. I called myself the luckiest man in America because of that. Meanwhile, down the hall, I hear, chicken jockey, and I'm like, what the hell is that? What's happening down the hall? No, it was such a gem of a movie to discover. It's one of the movies that makes me glad we do this show because who knows if I would have actually caught this at all, like whether it be in theaters or even coming to home video on demand. Maybe I would have because of the cast alone. I would have been like, I really like Paul Walterhausen and Walter Goggins is a nice touch too. It probably would have made my way. It would have made it to my way somehow, but if you can find this at a theater before it leaves, because I'm sure by next weekend it's gonna be gone. If you can find it and you're looking for a good show, whether it's a matinee show or you want to take a night out or whatever, this is a good one. If anything we've said here tonight has interested you, I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. Performances across the board, like I said, were great. The production design, coming off of seeing last year with Late Night with the Devil and how much we appreciated the production of that movie, it was great to see it kind of be echoed in this movie, and that they the filmmakers here very much reciprocated that same energy and love for making a set like that and everything. Even the little bit of glimpse that we get of CBS Studios when they're actually walking the lot and everything. You're seeing other sets as
Mhm.
well. It's such a nice touch. Other than that, I think, like, when we get to the third act and a little bit towards the end of the second act as well, but when the whole cat and mouse game and it gets revealed of what Michael's actually doing, I do think it kind of loses focus there. That aside, I still think this is a solid movie. Very much a gem of the year. It is an enthusiastic 3 out of 4 stars for me. I very much enjoyed it. Definitely check it out.
I think our winnings here may line up, unlike that infamous show in 1984. Yeah, dude, I'm happy that we watched this movie. I genuinely am. I walked away with it a little disappointed, only because all the ingredients were there. Now
Yeah.
it's not like the ingredients were there for like a 4-star
It
movie.
really is. It sucks to say that. Like, it made me sound like I was being much harsher on the
It sounds
film.
like, yeah, it sounds like we're harsh, but yeah,
Yeah.
well,
But it's
100%.
just like, no, it's like, oh, you almost had it. Like,
Hmm. And but honestly, you cannot fault this movie for taking, honestly, a different, less flashy approach. I kind of respect it,
mhm.
really, I do, because it's not like it was being, boring intentionally. It was kind of along that more menacing route. But between the aesthetic, especially the music, the awesome acting performances, and the sheer novelty of this movie, right? This will pique interest just from the plot alone. That'll draw people in, years from now or what have you. And this is a small gem. I believe this is the directorial debut of am I
Oh,
oh,
wow.
no, I think third movie. Sorry, I closed their IMDb,
Oh,
but they don't have an extensive rap sheet, this director.
Samir Oliveros.
Yes. And if I remember from their IMDb, this is like
this is
second
like,
or third.
this is their second feature-length film. They've done a bunch
Wow.
of, they did 2 shorts and 1 feature-length film before this.
Yeah, three out of 4 stars. This is that's a damn good start to your career so far.
Yeah.
It's you get to work with some great actors too. Hell yeah.
I also respect too, even as somebody who loves the original story of this. It's not a world-changing story. It's a significant touchstone in the history of American game shows. It's not a world-changing story, and I think that one of the nicest things about The Luckiest Man in America is that on that same note, it's not trying to be anything more than compelling entertainment. It's not trying to make a grand sweeping statement or a broad generalization in any means. It essentially actively keeps the memory of weird television history for people like me that embrace it alive. I hope one day we can get a Max Headroom Signal Intrusion movie. I don't think that'll happen though. But
We have there's
it's
no way. That's too famous. There's
it
no way.
but it's gratifying though to see a story as bizarre as this one get a lot of attention to detail behind it, and also has few other motives besides being a satisfying watch. And I hope it does find its audience. It would be cool. I think this is a reach, but I think it would be cool if, like, because this kind of audience, this sort of target audience that remembers Press Your Luck in its original run, isn't the kind that go out to the movie theater very often. It would be cool if somehow Game Show Network got the rights to this, to air this on TV or
That'd be
something,
so
so it
sick.
could kind of find its audience. I know they don't really, those niche cable networks, as I've talked about on the show before, don't really loan themselves to alternate programming, but I would love to see this thing get kind of picked up by like a GSN
I,
or something like that.
I think that'd be such a cool way for that channel to evolve, is that they pick up movies like this, or documentaries even, just to spice it up a bit.
Yeah. And I don't think it would be met with much chagrin. I really don't. Even from
No.
that target demographic that likes routine.
Man,
Really
how many hours of Cash Cab do you really have to watch? Okay, you can watch a movie. Like, get the fuck out of here.
That is kind of a fun show, though. I ain't gonna front with you. That show is kind of fun too. But 3 out of 4 stars for me. I had fun watching this thing twice in a weekend, and like I said, I think it's gonna wind up being one of my contemporary comfort movies too. I think that was confirmed on the second watch. Really glad you guys saw it. I appreciate you guys dealing with my curveball the way you did there last week and stuff, because I know this probably wasn't the easiest thing to see. There's very limited show times. It's kind of fucking impressive this thing actually got a 600 screens on the same weekend of Minecraft.
I was about to say, for it to, and my AMC is one that hosts a lot of smaller films. the fact that I only had one showtime, I was like, that's kind of wild to me. Usually they have way more.
And I checked mine over here. It's sticking around this weekend too, which is
Good.
kind of impressive as well. So check it out. Luckiest Man in America. I'm sure it'll be on streaming here very soon too. It's IFC. I don't think we mentioned that. It's IFC Films. Um, so I do hope this finds its audience in due time. That's our show tonight, though. Sleepless with Steve. We come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening, 6:30 Central Time. We are going to have a hell of a show, gentlemen. I cannot wait to talk next week about a Minecraft movie. This is going to be one batshit kind of show, too. Not only just because of the subject matter we're dealing with in the movie and the craziness and the viral TikTok shenanigans, chicken jockey, this, that, and the other thing, but also just because of the fact that this might go down as the biggest surprise of the year for me. And I'll leave it at that. So we will talk a Minecraft movie next week on the show, as well as its unexpected box office haul, too. We'll touch on that, all things Minecraft, on next week's show. Until then, for Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon, and yours truly, this has been Sleepless with Steve.